Hi everyone, we're going to be going through the STOP skill together. The STOP skill, just like the other distress tolerance skills, is focused on accepting reality as it is, rather than trying to make things different. Its purpose is to help in not making a problem or a difficult situation worse, especially when we have little control over the outcome. Distress tolerance skills should be applied, like Tiffany has said, to situations that are crisis related. And so it's important to be careful when we are applying them to situations that are not crisis related so that we don't engage in avoidance. And that's because experiencing uncomfortable feelings can be a signal to us. The stop skill helps us to refrain from acting impulsively. And when we're acting impulsively on emotions, we can often make a difficult situation worse. And the skill does this by helping a person to resist acting on the first impulse. So let me take you through this. So I'm going to refer you to handout 4, distress tolerance handout 4 here, that gives us an overview and brief description for each step of the stop skill. So when emotion mind takes over, you may find that anyone often acts impulsively without thinking. And so when we react impulsively, we don't have the time to use our skills and get into wise mind. To be able to use our skills, we first need to stop ourselves from reacting. To help us stay in control, we can use this stop skill. So what is the stop skill? It consists of the following sequence of steps: stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. So let's walk through each piece systematically here. Stop. When you feel your emotions are about to take control, stop. Don't react. The goal is to not move a muscle, just freeze. Freezing for a moment helps prevent us from doing what our emotions want us to do, to act without thinking. Stay in control. Remember that you're the boss of your emotions. If you're a visual person, some people often visualize an actual stop sign in their minds. And it can be helpful to stop in the moment. And another helpful tip here is sorry, I might have a little bit of sound concern. Another helpful tip here for some people is to also make use of paced breathing in that moment. So just to stop and get one's arousal down, you can inhale for a count of 4, and then exhale for any count above 4. If someone says something that provokes your anger, like calling you names, cursing at you, you might have the urge to attack the person verbally, physically. That, however, might not be in our best interests. Doing that might result in getting hurt or escalating the situation or creating new problems in a relationship. So stop, freeze, and don't act on your impulse to attack. If we were together, I'd ask you to think about some times when you may have had some strong urges to act on emotions. And I invite you to think about that now too. The next piece is to take a step back. When you're faced with a difficult situation, it may be hard to think about how to deal with it on the spot. The goal of this piece is to give ourselves some time to calm down and think. Take a step back in your mind. You can take a step back physically from the situation to get unstuck from what's going on. Again, take a deep breath and continue breathing deeply as long as you need to. This can work rather quickly to reduce extreme emotion or reduce emotion mind quickly until you're back in control. The goal is to not let our emotions control what we're going to do. And remember that we are not our emotions. So don't let it put you over the edge. So there have been times at which any of us have been crossing a street and we don't notice a car approaching. The driver of the car can get out, start cursing at us, might even try and physically push us. The urge could be to punch him in the face. And we might know that escalating the situation can get us in trouble, arrested, etc. So that's when we would stop and then take a step back. And you can literally take a step back to avoid confrontation. The next step here is observe. Observe what's happening around you and within you. So both the external and internal environment, who's involved, what other people are doing and saying. The idea is that to make effective choices, it's important not to jump to conclusions and instead to gather relevant information and facts so as to understand what's going on and what our available options are. Use your mindfulness skills of observing and non-judgmentalness. And if you need an additional reference, mindfulness handouts 4 and 5 go through this. The last piece is to proceed mindfully. Ask yourself, what do I want from this situation? What are my goals? What choice might make this situation better or worse? Ask your wise mind how to deal with this problem. Being mindful is the opposite of being impulsive or acting without thinking. When we are calm, we can stay in control. And when we do that and we have some information about what's going on, we're better prepared to deal with the situation effectively without making it worse. An example is getting home really late from work. Maybe I have a flat tire. If my partner starts yelling at me, accusing me of cheating on them, calling me names, it's easy to get very angry. One's first impulse might be to yell and call them names back. However, any person in this situation would want to deal with this situation skillfully. So if one were to take a step back from one's partner and observe additional information, in some cases, one might observe things that are helpful. For instance, maybe one's partner appears drunk and there's a lot of empty beer bottles in the kitchen. So you know that at that time, engaging with them is not going to be helpful. No sense in reasoning with someone when they're intoxicated. And maybe someone knows that their partner's likely to apologize in the morning. So proceeding mindfully by explaining the flat tire and just pacifying or making peace with one's partner in that situation and going to bed, your goals might be different in that situation. Here's an example where one might postpone a discussion till the next morning. When we put all of these steps together, we have the stop skill. And now might be a good time to think about or write down other difficult situations from the past when you wish you hadn't reacted impulsively, or situations that are likely to be difficult in the future. It could be helpful to think of some times when it would have been helpful to use the stop skill. And there are ways in which we can put each of these pieces together. These can be situations at home, especially as we're spending more time at home these days, or at work or other activities, or times when it might be helpful, again, to take a step back. For home practice, I'm going to point you to Distress Tolerance Worksheet number 2 that outlines practicing the stop skill. It outlines 2 separate events. So at the top here, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, it's one event, and the second part of the sheet is exactly the same as the top. It's just a second event. What it asks you to do is to rate your distress level and then to just write a description of the prompting event up here. Then asks you to simply check off the stop skills that you were able to use, the outcome of the event itself, and then on the bottom here to rate its effectiveness. With each of our DBT skills, our goal is to get towards a higher level of effectiveness, as you know. And there are still lessons to be learned when we feel as if we're not as effective as we can be. So over the upcoming week, if you're able to identify 2 situations in which you're, again, able to practice or leverage this stop skill, go ahead and record it here and we'll review it next week. Some other resources in your binders are Distress Tolerance Worksheet 2A, which then asks you to go through more of a day-by-day crisis situation. So this is just an additional resource to you that I wanted to point out. In closing, there are a few important pieces here. We can learn these skills one step at a time. For instance, first practicing just the stop piece, then stop and taking a step physically backwards and mentally backwards, and so on, until we've mastered the 4 steps or the whole sequence. A couple things to think about that I'll leave you with are to ask you to reflect on some times when you've had strong urges to act on emotions, but when doing so either did in reality or would have made the situation worse. And also to think about whether or not one particular step of this stop skill sequence is more difficult for you than others. Just write it down or make a note of it so we can discuss it together on our group call. Thanks for watching and look forward to talking to you. Bye.